Number 10, we have the Atacama Desert. Known as perhaps the world's driest location, the Atacama Desert doesn't get any rain at all, rendering its soil unable to support plant life. Not to mention the fact that much of its expanse is made out of sand, lava, and salt basins. To say that the land is parched is an extreme understatement. However, despite its arid landscape and the land's lack of ability to create support or life, the Atacama Desert has become one of NASA's best locations to conduct their research, such as ground tests for Mars missions. Also, the desert is also one of the best places to conduct astronomical study due to its extremely high altitude, dry air, lack of light pollution, and radio interference, and its virtually cloudless skies. Though there may be two major observatories in the desert, which makes calling the place completely untouched by human hands a little ironic, the fact that cities surrounding it and spaced wide apart and that there are no other industrial or residential structures within its bounds earns it a place on the list. Also, its 40,000 square miles of dry land is already saying something. Next up, we have Namibia. Getting its name from the Namib Desert, Namibia is one of the few sparsely populated areas in the southern part of Africa because human presence is at an extreme minimum. Namibia is home to the largest population of wild cheetahs and has made about a quarter of the entire world's cheetah population, about 2,500 of these speedsters. Even more impressive about Namibia, aside from its magnificent sand dunes, waterfalls, and petroglyphs, is the fact that because it is an untouched African landscape, it is one of the few countries in the world to have a perfectly preserved ecosystem in its entire constitution. As for number 8, we have the Seychelles. Pristine beaches and a healthy population of wildlife that includes the Seychelles black parrot, the Seychelles has at least 50% of an island nation under conservation, which makes it one of the most beautiful places on Earth. Perhaps it is the only country in the world with half of its land mass under conservation, and we believe that this is for a good reason, because the island nation boasts one of the most magnificent shorelines and beaches that we have ever seen. Its clear waters and powdery soft sands make it an envy of any island country across the globe, and with very little tourists and visitors exploring its shores, the Seychelles remain clean and pristine all year round. Next up, we have the Forest Lake. Russia's Lake Baikal is one of the world's oldest and deepest lakes. It is also recorded as the largest freshwater lake in terms of volume. To give you an idea, Baikal Lake makes up 20% of the entire world's freshwater surface, which is larger than the combined waters of the Great Lakes of North America. Also, the lake is home to 2,000 different species of plants and animal life, 2/3 of which are only endemic to the lake's region. How is it untouched and unexplored? Lake Baikal's location makes it one of the most difficult, if not impossible, places to visit. Found in south-central Siberia, the lake is surrounded by mountains and extremely dense forests and a number of wild rivers. Perhaps the only way to see the lake itself is to travel by air, and because of the thick forest below, landing a helicopter or a small plane is out of question. I guess its inaccessibility is Mother Nature's way of telling us that it's okay to look but not touch. Number 6, we have Tepuy, Venezuela. These large, towering sandstone plateaus are called the home of the gods in the language of the indigenous people of Gran Sabana in Venezuela. Rather than connected ranges like mountains, tepuys are, in actuality, the remains of large plateaus of sandstorm from the Precambrian period. Over thousands of years, the land structures eroded, leaving only the tepuys that we know of today. Despite its altitude, wildlife, and plant life high atop the tepuys, the tallest of them have been recorded as 3,000 meters tall. Dense forest lands blanket the flat top surface that has a slightly cooler temperature than the ground below and receives regular rainfall. It is because of its location, many plants have adapted to its unique climate and have become a rare species that can only be found in the tepuys. Next up, we have the Honokohal Falls. If you're thinking of visiting these majestic falls by foot or by car, you're far better off booking a helicopter tour. Surrounded by lush and thick forests and sloping landscapes, Honokohal Falls can only be seen from the sky. It is the tallest two-tiered waterfall in the island of Maui, Hawaii. It is the tallest two-tiered waterfall in the island of Maui, Hawaii, and is one of the most majestic places in the world that has never been touched by human hands. Atop of the falls is a network of streams that travel down the Mount Waialele and down the famed falls themselves. Also, the waters coming down from the Honokohal Falls fill the lower bodies of water that form the Hawaiian rivers of Waimea, Makaveli, Wailoa, and Hanapepe. As a point of interest, in the movie Jurassic Park, Honokohal Falls made an appearance in the frame as one of the scenes that establishes the movie's fictional theme park island. Number 4, we have the Tsingy de Bemaraha. As known as the stone forest of Madagascar, Tsingy de Bemaraha has been classified as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1990 and has since become under strict conservation to protect its landscape and diverse wildlife epidemic to the island. Translated as where one cannot walk barefoot, its unique natural structures of jagged rock protrusions were formed over millions of years as they began as underground caves. As monsoon rains wash over the formation's layer of sediment and limestone, the stone forest began to take shape and have risen up to 70 meters from the ground. What's even more unique about these formations is the vegetation and lush forests at the base of the canyon that is home to teeming wildlife, a stark contrast to the bare, razor-looking edges at the top part of the Tsingy. Though formations of eroded limestones may exist elsewhere on the island, none of them compare to the extraordinary topography and the size of Tsingy. Next up, we have Bhutan. When the image of Bhutan comes to mind, many of us would immediately picture a vast mountain ranges blanketed by the clouds, sweeping valleys below, and lone monasteries atop snow-capped mountains. While this image is not entirely false, a tiny detail that we miss is that Bhutan is covered in forests. In fact, about 60% of the land is covered in lush greenery, which makes a quarter of its natural territory protected by law and designated as natural parks. Another interesting fact to note about Bhutan is that compared to its Himalayan cousin, Tibet, it is comparatively much cleaner and is practically an unpolluted paradise that has allowed a biologically diverse ecosystem to take over and preserve the land. Number 2, we have Antarctica. While it may be a frozen continent, Antarctica is also classified as a desert because of its obvious lack of rainfall. Uninhabited and untouched by human civilization, about 96% of the continent is covered in ice that is at least 1 mile thick. Its beauty is in the desolate wastes that prevent human life from surviving over time, which is why the continent is abundant in wildlife epidemic to extremely cold climates such as seals, penguins, various seabirds, and populations of whales. Undoubtedly the coldest place on Earth, it is very much an essential part of our entire ecosystem that scientists and researchers risk their lives to visit in order to break the ice on the mystery that surrounds this frozen realm. And finally, we have the Galapagos Island. Despite the fact that hundreds of travelers have reached its shores after Charles Darwin's legendary voyage, the Galapagos Island remains pristine and untouched by human hands. The archipelago, over countless years since Darwin's visit, still has a diverse and populous wildlife that has become part of the island's identity. And for over 5 decades, the Galapagos has become a protected biological marine preserve, and its 23,000 local inhabitants have made sure that it remains that way. Because aside from the penguins, sea lions, and whales, there are also species of giant tortoises and iguanas that are endemic only to the island. Some of the tortoises have been recorded to be at least 100 years old.